Hi everyone, welcome back. It's the Great Griff, back again with Peter Chesbrough, who I'm sure those who followed me have been aware he's been on a bit of a jaunt around Cornwall. He's gone to see some very interesting sights. He's come back with some good stories and things to show us. So take it away, Pete.
Thanks, Adam. I was glad that we've actually got going, and I'm not
Yeah.
just not just ruining it by just leaving straight away, or causing some other technical difficulties, which seem to just start whenever I go near the computer. So uh, yeah, let's go. So this church was beautiful. It's right on a beach near Helston. Um, the village is called Gunwallow. Um, the saint's name is sort of here in a different form under Winwallow. I think this is a really interesting name, actually. It seems to be, I think it's interesting. It's got this wall term in it. It almost seems like a title or a name that's been given. But yeah, he's another sort of fifth, sixth century saint associated with Cornwall and Brittany and Wales and all the places you'd expect. Um, but yeah, absolutely beautiful little church. Um, Again, just the single sort of chapel style. This sort of makes it look like there's a tower here, but it was actually just like a little outbuilding. You can see this lovely old entrance to the church, like how much the graveyard sort of built up over time, and this path to the front door is just now sort of dug into the ground. I thought it was absolutely stunning. And you can see we lucked out on the weather that day as well. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so there's quite a few dedications to Winwallow in Cornwall, and I was sort of like just like looking for some more and having a look around, and one came up in Norfolk, which was really interesting. I thought it was in the Saxon heartland, Anglo-Saxon heartland of saints, where um, I thought it was very unusual to find a British saint popping up. So I had a look into it, and it was because it was an abbey founded by the De Clare family, and the De Clares have cropped up quite a lot in terms of Britain's hidden history work, because this is one of these Norman families that moved in pretty early into Wales, started marrying into the families, and eventually were quite a big part of the Cambro Norman invasion of Ireland. Um, so I thought it was quite interesting that they were picking saints from, both sides, because I'm sure the De Clares probably dedicated some places to some Catholic saints as well. But I thought it was quite interesting that they're possibly picking things from, both sides of their heritage, having
Mm.
married into the Welsh families. Um, yeah. What do you think about this, Adam?
Yeah. Extremely interesting little images, motifs there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
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 So I sort of rushed in to snap this up. These very much look like Arwen's to me. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful old font. You can see some damage has been done to it over time as well. Um, yeah, absolutely fantastic. I think it's been reset. I think this is a new base that's been put in for it though. But yeah, these very much uh, I tried to sort of think of other things that they could be,
Yeah.
but uh, I don't know what else the artist could have been thinking about. But yeah, I'm not sure of the a date on the font, um, but it would be very interesting if it was pre-YOLO. Um,
Absolutely. Well, it definitely looks it, doesn't it?
Certainly does,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
look like a Victorian font
No,
essentially.
not at all.
Um, so yeah, then we move on to St. Justin Roseland. Now, St. Justin Roseland's one of the places that's come up a couple of times in our conversation recently, with your dad as well, Adam.
Mm.
Um, this is one of the areas that claims that Jesus came as a child with Joseph of Arimathea. Um, I recommend anyone should just go here anyway because it's so beautiful. It's just like you creep down into this valley and then you enter into the churchyard and you can't see the church at all. And you wind yourself down all these little paths amongst various gravestones of different size and shape and um, palm trees and hedgerows and flowering plants, just absolutely just gorgeous garden. And then the church just like appears, as you can see, you know, through the trees as you head down towards it. So anyone should just go there anyway. It's wonderful. It's got a real feeling to it. It's got a real magic to it.
Yeah.
You can tell that the people here were exceedingly proud of their local heritage. And this cross is just one example of many that were equally as impressive, made out of all different kinds of colors of stone, but generally granite, and you know, red granite, grey granite, black granite. You know, fabulous designs. But yeah, just you could tell that this was important to people, not just as a place of religious, you know, importance, but as a place of, you know, cultural history, you know. So here's a little bit of writing.
Hey.
This is about the legend of Christ coming to St. Just. So what we've got, the usual, Joseph of Arimathea as a tin merchant. Oh, look, it's the tea fairy.
Brilliant.
I got your blanket, so.
Oh, all right, thank you. Cheers.
All right,
Fantastic.
Excellent. So everyone can just pause and go and make yourselves a cup of tea now, and then we'll come back in a minute.
Send a text message to the right person in a minute.
Got a bit of tea envy there.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Now, right. Unpause, everyone. Right. We're back to it. Yeah. So, yeah. So there's, as I sort of mentioned as well when we spoke with your dad, there's a few other places in the area that also, you know, make this claim about Jesus visiting. Loo is one, and obviously St. Michael's Mount has long been claimed to be Ictus, the tin trading island that is mentioned, I think, in a couple of Greek geographies, or Latin and Greek ones. I'm not quite sure. Roseland's interesting because you've got St. Justin Roseland and St. Anthony in Roseland that both associate this idea. St. Anthony, I think, is possibly Anthony of Padua, Catholic saint. And St. Just is, again, he's Saint Just in Brittany, he's St. Just in Devon and Cornwall, and he's Iestyn in Wales. And he is the son of Geraint ap Urbin, who died at Longborth, and who was possibly, or I think, I'm pretty convinced that he's buried at Beth Geraint Farm, you know, just a couple of miles away from Longborth. So yeah, that's this Iestyn. And his family, they're venerated not just down here in Cornwall, also up in Anglesey, I believe. You can find churches dedicated to Geraint, Iestyn, and Cuby. Cuby is, or Cubby, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it, but he's either a son of Iestyn. Certainly this chap in this book, Celtic Christianity of Cornwall, he says Cuby is the grandson of Geraint. So he's either Iestyn's son or a nephew of Iestyn. This book is excellent, by the way. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I read this book, you know, I read in this book the day before I first heard Ross mention on a live show about how the Bretons were sent to take Cornwall from the Saxons. It wasn't Norman lords who went to Devon and Cornwall.
Yes,
it was Breton lords who went. Now I'm sure they were probably well Catholicized in Brittany. Brittany had a very different development to Cornwall and Wales, and he goes through it in this book. Actually, it's really interesting. But still, it was the first, you know, I'd read in this book he mentioned about these Breton lords, and then I saw Ross saying, God, you know, and then the Bretons went. I wonder if that was some sort of liberation. I was like, oh my God, I've just read about that. You know, it was
yes,
really, you know, I used to have really fantastic synchronicities watching Ross's show where, you know, he'd say something and literally only the day before I'd read, you know, just things linking up, just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that's there wasn't a lot there about Christ and Joseph of Arimathea in the church, not a lot. There was this in a nice little glossy book, there was this one paragraph.
Not a big show and dance about it.
There was this this little poem which was really lovely, and Cornwall has this real strong tradition of sort of writing that's very, just like a lot of the Welsh stuff, mourning for a lost time.
Yeah,
you know, there's still a lot about, you know, about some of it's very recent, you know, just a loss of work when mining basically went completely under. Not to mention all the problems and restrictions that have been going on with fishing as well. It's, you know, it's not an easy time. But I thought, you know, I've always associated with these recent problems, but it's now only since I've read a lot more medieval Welsh poetry and, you know, more of the 19th century stuff as well, that I get that same feeling of that, you know, these people who are aware of there was this time where they, you know, dominated their land. You know, they weren't just sort of subjugated in it and at the whims of, you know, London or whatever. There's this and that was the first time I'd made that connection, you know. Having spent a lot of time in Cornwall, it was interesting to only now just make that connection. And other people might disagree, whatever, it's just an idea. But lovely old font in Sir Justin Roseland. I mean, this thing's absolutely gorgeous, really strange design. So you can't really see on here, but see these bits that are carved in here wasn't the same on the other side. It was like rounded off, and then there was this slot in there, and then it sort of comes round, and it was same on that side like this. So it sort of like pointed this end. A very strange shape, almost like a face here, like there's ears and a nose. Like it's really odd. But yeah, lovely. Definitely pretty old. I mean, yeah. Now, this is the only thing that sort of struck me as some sort of esoteric clue. I mean, I had a bit of research. This was dedicated in just before the First World War by actually the son of the rector of the parish of St Just of Roseland. So someone very much, you know, involved in the area. And basically it's showing the bloodline. We got Christ in the middle. We've got Abraham here on the left. I thought quite an interesting depiction of him as a warrior. And Solomon as a young man as well, which I thought was quite another interesting one, with a clean shaven face, but he's got the temple there, obviously. What I thought particularly interesting in terms of the idea of the bloodline is that in terms of Joseph of Arimathea and a child, this relates, it's interesting. In terms of Jesus as an adult with a son, this is far more important.
Yes.
You know, and far more relevant. And I did one sort of thing flashed across my mind is, what if Joseph of Arimathea and Jesus is actually a misdirection from Jesus and the Son? Especially in a world, you know, where a crucifixion is final.
Yes.
But yeah, that was just a little possibility that threw across my mind, a little, just something, you know, just something to working hypothesis. So, you know, we run several of them at the same time, and they're probably all wrong, but you know, it's the way to go. But I thought that was the first time that occurred to me, that could be quite a useful way to sort of misdirect from something. And this is St Just's Holy Well. There's a lot of the holy wells are still by the churches. I find the holy wells fairly unimpressive, to be honest. Some of them are quite pretty or in very nice settings, but so much has been done to them over the centuries, including possibly being lost and then rediscovered and rebuilt. And this one now, is within the graveyard, so it's very well maintained, and the path has been built up. This could all be very new, all this stonework. There's nothing I can look at and like get hold of and do something with. Do you know what I mean? It's but it's worth wandering around that graveyard to find these little bits, just to experience walking through the graveyard. It was so beautiful. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah.
So here's our first inscribed stone. So this is in Morgan in Meneag. That's Morgan, Nawgan, but it's just like the Welsh name Morgan. Now, this stone, you could not see the inscription at all. It was very sad. I was really excited. This is the first one we saw on the trip, and I couldn't even see to where to put my fingers to try and feel it.
Yeah,
it was that gone. And this is like proudly displayed in the middle of the village, and it's kind of, where's the pride if it's just open to the elements and what is there is lost. There was a little stone here, as we see. I'll just move on. A little slate with this in. It looks like someone's had a go at it as well, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how accurate a rendering of the letters and the words this is, because, as I say, there was just nothing visible. The only thing visible was a benchmark, a later benchmark. Got excited, thought it was an Arwen, and then saw it was a benchmark. And I can't believe, I mean, what those guys did to ancient monuments, those OS guys. I mean, I've seen so many ancient monuments with benchmarks in them. It's really sad.
Me too. Yeah, went up on the back of the Bodic stone in Margam. I was when I was in Margam, I was like, it's an Arwen. No, I had like you had the same kind of thing. I got excited for a second, then I realised there's a reason why it's looking so neat and tidy. And
exactly. And they really hack them in as well.
Yeah,
they don't mess around. They are deep into the rock. It's not going anywhere. And it would be really interesting to look at these names and at some point and see if we can get anything from them, even if it's just looking at the genealogies and seeing what other people have said, what their interpretations are. Whether there's any illustrations of people who could work out the lettering. There's a historian, John Fletcher, I've gone on about in previous ones. Apparently he's done a lot of work going around to the stones in Cornwall, marking them out with chalk and photographing them. So it'd be really good to see if there's can find some of those images. I just wanted to mention about this. So I was traveling with a chap called Adam as well. Let's not confuse two Adams here. But he asked me straight off, does this what lieth here is not the soul? He said, is that a translation of the inscription? And I don't blame him for asking, because the way they've laid it out, for those who are not in the know, it's very easy to mistake that. I don't know why they tried to do it, whether it was someone feeling poetic or whether they bought a cheap gravestone which already had it carved on. I don't know, but that's what they went for. You'll see with some of the other stones that there was much better description with them. So we'll have a look at these. So this one is in Gulval, just outside of Penzance, a place called Blue Bridge, and you even from this image you can kind of see in the light a couple of the lines from the inscription. It's very faint. I'm not sure if this one had a cross in the top as well. I'm not sure. I reckon you could probably trace it out with some chalk and get that. Unfortunately, we were in such a... We wanted to do as much as possible.
Yeah.
But when you want to do as much as possible, you have to sacrifice time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for me, this one was going to as many places as possible, and now I know where I want to go back to, and where I don't want to go back to and spend time. So
yeah.
it was worth it, but you know, there were a couple of things. Oh, zoomed in. A couple of things where I wish we spent a bit more time, but never mind. Here's the inscription. You can't quite see it. It says Quenataucus, and they've put lies in brackets, by the way. Quenataucus here, son of Dinas, or Dinuus. It's W. So I wonder how those two U's look next to each other and whether they're different from each other. They say they've put lies in brackets, so obviously that word isn't actually on the stone.
Yeah.
We can see it's not in its original setting. This tablet was placed here in 1986. Oh, the tablet was placed here in 1986. But I did read about actually this stone and the Morgan stone. I don't think either of them are, that they were found and recognized for what they were and then placed. I think they're in their general area, but they're not, you know, immediately where they were found. In fact, I don't think any of these stones are. So when I talk about moving them for protection, a lot of people might get a bit funny about, you know, well, you don't want to remove them from their landscape, but I really don't know how many of these are even close to where they were originally found.
It's a good, really good point.
Yeah.
Really good point.
And moving somewhere so they can actually still exist into the future.
Yeah, we can have
that, you know,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is Lanyon Coit. Coit is the Cornish word generally for dolmen. This has been rebuilt, so we're not quite sure how close to its original form is. It's a beautiful shape. There's a few of these in Cornwall, not as many as Wales, I don't think, or Ireland. And there's only one in Devon, which I still haven't been to. I did my travelling around, and I still even haven't been to the biggest and oldest stone circle on Dartmoor or the dolmen on Dartmoor. But never mind, I did see some great stuff. So yeah, Lanyon Coit. I mean, the size of the capstone was fantastic. This is only the second dolmen I've seen. Me and Adam have probably seen the same other one. We've only just realised that we both visited the same area of France loads and loads over the years. So we've probably seen the same one. But yeah, it was gorgeous, lovely place. There's these stones on the ground. You know, they could have no idea what position they were in or how it's been moved around. Dolmens are something that me and you are going to have to do a whole video on at some point.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, even Carl is like, yeah, they were used as burial places, but only after they were used for 1,000 years.
Whatever else they were used for, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then there's you know, half of them don't even have bones in them or are never found with bones in them anyway. So
absolutely.
Very strange things. Yeah. Give me the creeps, to be honest. They really do.
They've got such an atmosphere and energy to them, haven't they? Which is mysterious.
And they are megalithic. Those capstones are never small. They are just, I mean, this one was tremendous. And, you know, the one that one in Branton, I'd say the capstone was larger, but it's made of limestone, so it might not be as heavy.
Okay, right.
The density of granite, you know, granite's a heavy rock as well as a hard one. So, you know, this is a serious bit of work, and you certainly couldn't dig out and then put these in because the ground was, you know, this is the highest point of ground until, you know, up there. And even the other thing I thought about was where they moved the rock from, because it was quite a walk from any outcrops, and there was not a lot of surface rock around, nothing big anyway.
Right.
Only stuff that'd been used for wall building. So they would have had to have got this, I reckon, moved it at least quarter of a mile or half a mile, at least. Which, you know, it's not impossible, but it's an impressive feat of work.
That's it, yeah. And another really sort of impressive feat. We've got to try and work out how they did it. It's like incredible.
Just nuts. Anyway,
it is.
Men-an-Tol and some cows. There's two of the most famous monuments in Penwith, right, you know, on that Land's End Peninsula. There's Men-an-Tol and Boscarwanan. And our mutual friend Carl Langford, the archaeologist, once said he thought Men-an-Tol was a bit disappointing, and I thought, oh, that's a bit harsh. And I have to admit that I agree with him after visiting. It's a lovely little site. The setting is incredible as well. I've got a view off sort of up the moor, but if you turn back on yourself, you're basically looking down this sort of moorland on either side, sort of towards the sea. It's absolutely gorgeous. But the site was very small. You could also see the other rocks in the ground, because I think the latest research that Carl went over with us was suggesting that these have actually been realigned by the antiquarians, which I think is recorded. That we know that's been put back up by the antiquarians, but also that actually they might have lined it up, and these actually might have been all part of a circle. I don't think that's confirmed, but I think that's what the most recent research suggested. So this sort of shape of the two stones and the ring in the center is not based on archaeological evidence. It was the fancy of antiquarians. So when trying to interpret the site, you got to be really careful about what it is. But as I mentioned, I just went through these with Alan before, and I'd just like to say again, this I have never seen a circular stone like this on any other monument, built, Neolithic or Bronze Age Britain. Nothing like this. Seen hold stones. We've got a hold stone on Dartmoor called the Tolman Stone. I think Tolman Stone means hold stone, because there's also a village in Cornwall, I think, called Tolman, and they've got a hold stone that's beautiful looking stone. But I've never seen one also cut into a ring shape as well. And I think that's really interesting. And why that stone would be picked for a stone circle as well is strange. And I'd love to see if anyone else has seen anything like that, because that I think that's everyone loves Stonehenge because it's got lintels. Everyone loves Men-an-Tol because it's got a polo. I don't know. Maybe is it as simple as that? Because I don't know.
It's quite a popular site, isn't it?
Yeah, very is, and it's accessible as well. There's decent parking, so
right. Yeah, there's the I see it all the time. People pass their newborns down around the hole, don't they? That's quite a sort of.
Unfortunately, there was already a rather large family doing that when I got there, so I couldn't get involved.
Oh, there was. Oh, right.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about the cows. Yeah, they were definitely in charge of the monument that day, so we left them to it. But, lovely cows, though. Lovely. I love cows. Beautiful. Boscawen, though, was awesome. Parking is hairy. It's quite a fast road, and there's just like a lay-by that's big enough for 3 cars, and it's so not great. But you walk down through this beautiful little path in through a little, like hedgerow that's grown over. It's so romantic, and you go in, and the circle is much bigger than I expected. I think a lot of people stand back and get a photo of the whole thing, which kind of makes it look small, makes these stones look 2 foot high, but they're actually just over a meter probably. They're absolutely solid lumps. The circle's got a pretty substantial diameter, and this central stone was pretty whopping as well. And I think as well, as far as research suggests, the angle is intentional as well.
It looks it, doesn't it? It looks, and it really gets the imagination going as to like why, and it's kind of, it's like
people who are into shadows must love it. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me, the first thing I think of is like sundial.
Absolutely, yeah. It definitely looks like a Norman stone or something like that, doesn't it? Yeah. This also, like this block here at the back, this was made of solid quartz, and obviously, if you're thinking about timekeeping, quartz is very important. There's a bit of quartz in every single watch ever made, So so that's interesting. The blue stones are meant to have a particularly high quartz stone content as well. So, but personally, I'm not really into that sort of thing, and I'm not
Yeah.
really into shadow casting either. But I know some people love it, and I really can't recommend that again. And I'm not here to say what's right and what's wrong. So go to this site. It was great. I'd love to go evening or early in the morning or something like that. I think that would be gorgeous. When we were there, it would have been nice to have a bit of time to ourselves, but there were loads of volunteers there cutting back the bracken, which is great to see people maintaining the site and stuff. But
Yeah.
it didn't meant we couldn't. It wasn't quite the right vibe for hanging out, unfortunately. But this is definitely one I'm going back to. Right near Men-an-Tol, though, so it's worth visiting Men-an-Tol just because the other stuff in the area as well. There's the Nine Maidens Stone Circle, which I didn't get to, and a few big barrows. And this is the men's scruffer. You might have seen the little video that I did of it. Unfortunately, you can see the burning, the damage done to it, which is pretty sad. Very recently, you can see quite clearly the lettering. We've got Rialo Bran across the top and Cuno Valley. And I made a point about the word Philly or Phil or Phileas appearing on the stone. The assumption has always been this is Rialo Bran, son of Cuno Valley. But I was saying, where is the son of?
Yeah.
Now, a couple of people, when the stone's been moved in the past, have recorded a Philly or a Phil off the bottom. But I mean, I've seen antiquarians record things that aren't there. In fact, your dad was talking about the possible missing third line on the Tristan stone.
Yeah.
And Borlase, who was the antiquarian who wrote about that, is also one of the people who record on the Philly. Now he never saw the third line. Someone reported it to him, and I don't think it ever existed really. And I think it, unfortunately, it is a little fantasy. But we've got Borlase saying there is a possible third line of the Tristan stone, and Borlase saying there is definitely Philly written under here. So we can take these with a pinch of salt. It'd be lovely to see it for ourselves. You know, I'm not going to go and dig this stone up or anything like that, as someone tried to do, which was very sad. But considering the damage that's been done to it recently, it'd be great to see this stone protected properly. And somewhere we can see it, and it would be nice to see the full inscription as well. Someone commented to me, I think they went for stability rather than clarity of inscription when they were placing it, which makes me wonder about if they had to bury that much for it to stand up. Was the stone intended to be stood up?
Great point. As it always stood.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and it got me thinking about basically, especially all of them where the writing is written, you know, down that way.
Yeah. If it's halfway, if you've got there's more inscription halfway down in the earth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you went to see the Carousius stone, which has got the writing is I can't. Is there even a word for this? You know, the writing's horizontal; it doesn't vertically go down.
Yeah.
And then you've got I saw a little post someone did the other day on the Vortoporus stone, which is in West Wales. I think Vortoporus was an Irish king whose family were driven out later. And his stone, you know, he's 5th century, and his stone is carved horizontally as well, you know, written out like that. So if that style continued, why are these on the right? You know, when did they start going down vertically? And if that's the case, was it even meant to be stood up? I mean, some of these are displayed, you know, like your dad was talking about them being either displayed on the entranceway to the church, either above the entrance or below it. I mean, I don't know. It's just something that I thought of.
Yeah, really good point.
But again, lovely location, really worth the visit. And so you should probably go to Men-an-Tol too. Don't want to badmouth Men-an-Tol too much. Right. And yeah, this was stunning. This was absolutely stunning, this rock. I mean, they put it on a huge granite plinth, which you could see in the little video. I think I went up right from the bottom. And so it really towers above you. My problem is that I've got ADHD and it's right by a road. So I'm trying to like concentrate on this stone and enjoy it and look at it. And all I can hear is the cars zooming past. And all I can think about is the noise and the rumble of the cars. And I just want to concentrate on the stone so badly.
Yeah.
And I can't, and I feel aggy, and I hate standing by the side of roads. It's real overstimulation for me. I hate it. So, yeah, I just wanted to leave, unfortunately, but did what I did. I looked as much as I can. I'd love to go back, and maybe at a quiet time of year, at a quiet day, we can go and have a look again. Unfortunately, you can see another benchmark here, absolutely hacked in, so close to the inscription as well, which is real sad, really sad. Unfortunately, you cannot really read the Drastanus part of the stone. I reckon you could possibly pick it out with chalk, though.
Yeah,
you could see more than, say, the Morgan stone. And you could see the Kuno Wari, which we reckon relates to Conomorus, King Mark. We managed to talk about Tristan is old in that video for 20 minutes without saying Tristan is old. Well, this is the stone we were talking about, and it says Tristan, son of Conomorus. Now, it's interesting because one of the problems with the King Mark Conomorus thing is that a couple of writers have argued they're separate people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, part of the argument is the fact that they can't believe that a king would have two different names. Now, we know from, say, Uther Pendragons that it's very easy for them to have at least two names, if not more.
Absolutely.
So that's not a problem. And then the other problem was, well, we've got Conomorus in Brittany, and King Mark seems to be sort of somewhere in the Glamorgan, Avon area. And it's like, well, again, we talked about Iestyn and Geraint. You find Iestyn and Geraint in Brittany, Cornwall, North in Gwynedd and Anglesey. So, that's even further away than Glamorgan. Yeah. So I don't think this is a problem of a king having influence in Cornwall, and Brittany and Glamorgan. So I think definitely King March at Merchion is Conomorus, and I think this stone really, really brings it all together, because there's just too many coincidences that this guy who sounds like Conomorus, has a son whose name sounds like Tristan, and we're in Cornwall, right where the British story centers it. I think there's way too many coincidences for this stone to exist if King Mark and Conomorus aren't the same person. Way too many coincidences.
Yeah.
And then again, fabulously, image of Christ on the back of this cross. I was commenting to Adam how you can see this area of black. Now this is in relief, like low relief, so it's carved out of the stone rather than into the stone. And I think this lighter grey you can see is where they've removed the stone, which I think is really interesting. Especially, actually, I just noticed if you jump back to the front, possibly it looks like something's been knocked off the front here.
Yes.
Removed. And maybe it's an image again in relief, maybe another Christ. It almost looks like there is another T shape there.
That could well
be my eyes.
Yeah.
But that would be worth looking at again closely. It's interesting it's on the back of the stone, for one. Maybe they tried to do it on the front and it didn't come off well, and they did another one on the back. So, but again, it clearly shows these people are Christian.
Yep.
So yeah.
Brilliant.
The Doniert stone. So King Dungarth or Dunyarth, or Doniert, he's a 9th century king of Cornwall who worked with the Danes from Dublin to basically keep Wessex out of the southwest. And there was a whole period where the Danes and the Cornish, or the West Welsh as they were known, basically were in a backwards and forwards game with Wessex. Yeah. As Wessex would move in, have some success, take some lands or whatever, and then a few years later, Cornish would just move back in, bump them out, you know, just. But of course, as you find with the same wars with the Welsh, you know, you only find the victories recorded. So, you know, if you look when the Saxons conquered Cornwall, you'll get like 4 different dates, and you know, 3 of them are literally a century apart from each other. Some, you know, so
okay, yeah, that should tell you everything. Yeah,
right. So they just had to keep on conquering it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. Okay. But it's just because they say something in there's a comment in the Saxon Chronicle which says something like, raided Cornwall sea to sea, and someone was like, great, they conquered Cornwall. Well,
yeah.
you know, no, it means they raided it, and like we know about cattle raids and how that sort of thing works. You know, that's yeah, it's about military dominance and stuff, but it's not about conquering people.
No, it doesn't necessarily mean have to settle and conquer and everything, does it? No.
And yeah, so Doniert, one of these kings, and possibly one of the last kings of Cornwall. I'm not sure, one of the last recorded kings of Cornwall. He drowned in the Foul Estuary, I believe, and possibly as a punishment for not turning out for the Danes. Possibly that the Vikings were expecting him and his forces to be somewhere, and he wasn't, and he might have been drowned in the Foul for that. I'm not quite sure. It's something I'd like to look into, and it would be good to look at, you know, see if we can get something out of the inscription that either supports or, you know, or at least something about his death. That would be really interesting.
Great.
Lovely stone it's called the other half of the stone, but it's not the other half of the Doniert stone. It's a century later. It's unfortunately no lettering on it to give us a clue of whose it was, but clearly someone very important. It's lovely granite work, which I was saying to Adam, when you stand away from it, you can get this image of the knotwork, but as you move closer, you see it's just a very sort of simple pattern that's been carved into the granite, which as you move back just gives this impression of the knotwork. It's like your brain fills in the gaps. It's really beautiful. And I was also saying earlier about how there's almost like a burial chamber underneath, a cruciform shaped burial chamber. Now here's something I forgot to mention to you earlier, Adam, and that is that they sent Cornish miners in to dig it out. I don't know if you remember from that talk Carl did about how Silbury Hill was investigated by Cornish miners as well. And they were actually, you know, called to lots of different places to do similar work, and Cornish miners were being moved all over the world for their experience in mining anyway. Now, when they came out, what they said is that this is just old tin works.
Okay.
Right, they weren't sure, but now it was cruciform in shape, and it was alone and by itself, and it was under this big monument. And I'm just not sure if it was just tin work, but then something else crossed my mind, and that is in the 9th century, if you're in Cornwall and you want a cruciform chamber dug out of the ground, who do you get to dig out your chamber?
Getting miners.
You get tin miners in, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
So any work that's done in there is going to look like tin miners have done.
Bingo.
So
doesn't necessarily mean it's tin work.
No, exactly.
They've been hired.
I mean, they're not. We don't have underground burial chamber builders in Britain. You know, we build mounds generally. So, but we would have people. Cornwall would have had people with these sorts of skills for a long time. You know.
Who better to call them the miners
to do it?
Yeah. Great point.
And then finally, I just wanted to end on this is on Bodmin. This is stone cross, known as the Long Stone or as Long Tom. It was absolutely stunning. It's massive. It's like 10 foot high, absolutely huge. You know, I've seen Neolithic monuments smaller than this. It was megalithic. It was great. There's a very similar one nearby, which has got more intricate carving on it. In Llanivit, I believe the place is called. But the thing that sort of interested me the most about it was the top section, because you see these little wheel crosses which have been broken off all over Cornwall. They are just all over the shop. I drove the amount of villages we drove through, and I saw one, and I thought, I'd love to photograph that, but it was already gone. Like we just whizzed right past it.
Yeah.
I must have seen 5 or 6 of these just unintentionally, just because we drove past them. I've been to see one in a churchyard in Helston, and in St Wynwallow's Church, the first place on the video. There was one in there as well. I've got a picture of it somewhere. Don't know why it's not here, but whatever. But they've all clearly been broken off from the shaft. They're not just the wheel cross. They've clearly been snapped off, which got me thinking about the Reformation in particular.
Yes.
But at some point, if we're talking about the destruction of Christian monuments in Britain, it happened at the hands of other Christians. And it's interesting how intense it was in places like Cornwall or Wales.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's a narrative about Christianity to crush, it's in this place, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I sent you that little, I sent you that note about there was a Memorial Day happening soon.
Oh yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, about the Bible March. Yeah. So it was like one of the biggest sort of revolutionary movements in Britain at the time. A massive army basically stormed towards London from Cornwall, because they got a standardized Bible written in English.
Yeah.
And they didn't like it. I think part of the problem is that it wasn't written in Cornish, but I wouldn't be surprised if the contents were an issue as well, and whether there were certain differences in the Bible or in the liturgy, in the prayer book. So I thought it was very interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these have just fallen at the hands of farmers for gateposts, and I've no doubt that's where most of the shafts for the tops of the wheel crosses are found, probably are. And if they're like this one and undecorated, then no one's going to know what it originally was, But it was really interesting, just on another note as well, just to finish off. I've mentioned before that I want to have a little talk about Egypt and particularly granite cutting in Egypt. And this little trip has really sort of cemented a lot of ideas I've had about that, because I can see, looking at these monuments, sort of a development in how the granite was worked and moved and shaped, and decorated. And if you go to Egypt, you might as well just turn that on its head, completely upside down. In the oldest times of Egypt, they could cut, polish, and work granite to a level that you only see on 1930s headstones in the West Country. Yeah. And that's meant to be, 2,500 BC. And the old because it's the Old Kingdom as well, where they particularly work with the hard stones. And the work they do is insane. And if you can do that work just by polishing with a cloth and some sand, then why the hell for 3,000 years did we not bother in Britain? Why did we? If we go back and look at some of that, let's have a look at just one final point. I'm going off. This was a talk about Cornwall. Now we're talking about Egypt. So whatever. Let's have a look at this. Is it that font? Yeah, let's have a look at that font. You see, it's got these sort of like pock marks in it, these holes.
Yep.
So that's basically where you come to a bit of quartz in the stone. And there's no way you're going to cut that quartz off. So what you end up doing is you knock it, so the quartz inclusion literally falls out. But that not only takes off that bit that's sticking out, but it takes the bit that was inside your stone. So it just leaves a little pock mark, a hole, right?
Yeah.
And that's because you can't cut the quartz. But you go to 2,500 BC Egypt, sliced right through it, no problem.
Yeah.
And you see this sort of pock marking right up, 17th century, 18th century work still happens. It's not until diamond saws come in that you get anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, enough about Egypt. Cornwall was fab. I really recommend St Justin Roseland. I really recommend Boscawen. if you're going to go and see Men Scruffy, you might as well go and see Men-an-Tol. And that's the bloodline of Christ. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. Just little tidbits. If you're interested more in the stones, I did go and see one more in St Sampson's near Callington. Lovely stone which had the Tau Row carved on it.
I
Again,
enjoyed that.
if you look at all the literature, they all call it a Chiro. So it was good to see that and stick my finger in it and see it. Again, the lettering was not very well preserved. It did have a little plaque on the back with the writing. So I would like to have a look and see if how well other antiquarians have recorded it, and if there's any inconsistencies in the reports, as there often are. So yeah, but again, a lovely place. The church was actually in the middle of repairs. I think it had been out of use for some time, but again, Samson crops up, and Samson is Samson of Dol, who is of course in the Arthurian family. There's something else I'd like to mention about saints as well, is Breoch. Breoch appears in Cornwall quite often, and he jumped out at me because I remember as a kid visiting northern France and going to Saint-Briac, which is the same name. He's called Breoch in Gloucestershire as well, and he's in South Wales. There's a church. Well, it's actually in West Wales. It's called Llandy Freog, and he's recorded as Freog rather than Breoch.
Okay.
If you look about where he is, if you look at his life, you can place him in the 6th century, and there's one other Freoch that we know, a brother of Arthur. And what's interesting in the Peter Bartram says about Breoch's life. He says that Breoch's life. He says that the parents' names are artificial, in inverted commas.
Okay.
So basically at some point someone said, right, these names have clearly been added. So whatever information is about his family and the life is not original, basically, and it's been altered. So I thought it was quite interesting identifying Freoch with Breoch as a possibility. I had a chat online with some guys about it. It's really interesting. And yeah, just these names that come up again. Paul as well, brother of Arthur, Paul Aurelian. He comes up in Cornwall. Just everywhere you go, you see these names and you start to make connections. And
wow, that's brilliant.
It's great. And I've been visiting Cornwall all my life, but it's only really getting in, understanding the Welsh history that I can now look at this stuff and really understand what's going on there and who these people are. And we can then actually get a proper understanding of our history and not just the sort of half a story that we've been told before.
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. It's good to make those connections. Really get them solidified. In fact, that's really good. Really good. Yeah, it makes you really want to go to Cornwall.
Yeah, great. Yeah,
but, I mean, I haven't been for a long time, and I want to go with, now with a bit more of the knowledge that I've got now and things, and hopefully make some connections myself too.
Oh, another stone came up actually, Adam. One more stone. It's one more. Just one more thing. Near Tintagel. You've got a place called St Nectan's Glen, and St Nectan's Glen is where the labyrinth is carved into the wall. Okay. There's a petroglyph of a classic maze. The same Miz maze, Troy Town Miz maze.
The Troy maze thing. Yeah.
There's one of that which is identical to the Hopi maze, by the way, from southwestern United States. There's one of them there, and nearby there's a stone as well, and it's in Latin, and it's a 3rd century stone because it has the traces of 2 emperors' names on it, which is Gallus and something or else, and it basically just says to their glory. The writing's written horizontally, and basically they've taken it as evidence of basically like say there was tin trading with the Romans in Tintagel, I think the idea is that they put up a sign saying, "Look, we love your emperors. Come and trade tin."
I see.
That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like Romans around here. It's fine. And I genuinely like. I've seen more and more that they're pushing loads recently about Romans in Cornwall. There's been a lot about it recently.
Okay.
A lot of the big, the big British dig off. I don't know what are they called. I don't watch these programs. The archaeology BBC archaeology
Not
programs.
the time team.
No, it's not Time Team. It's the recent ones that they talk to you like you're a child.
Right. No, do you know what? I don't.
And David is digging in some dirt today. That is the Romans came over. That sort of thing. Digging, is it Digging for Britain, or I think there's several of them, right?
I
But
don't know. Yeah.
There's been a couple of things about Romans in Cornwall, and what's really funny is the latest stuff, the latest that you find generally Roman stuff in Cornwall. It's like 80 AD.
No.
Like when I mean Romans, sorry, let's just clarify that before some people
Yeah.
start getting angry. You get Roman stuff in Cornwall after this time, but Roman soldiers, 80 AD is the latest. They've got one big marching camp they found, but it was there for so little a time. They reckon in like 50 AD. They reckon it was there for so little time that they got virtually no artifact. They got no artifacts from it. All they got was the ditch. There's a massive ditch, which is clearly a marching camp for a 10,000 strong army, but it looked like it walks into Cornwall and then walks out again. Now that could have been a very effective show of power. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that it didn't change the political landscape, but it means that they didn't dig in and fight. Now, they also didn't build any civitas either.
No.
The closest city is Exeter, which is right in the heart of Dumnonia, but I mean it's nowhere near West Cornwall, like where there's so much metal resources and all resources. The Cowstock camp, so Cowstock's on the Tamar between modern day Devon and Cornwall. It's near some lead mines and things like that. They think there's some Roman mining going on, but this thing was built on an Iron Age site, which also had Bronze Age stuff on it. It continued to be used from immediately after the soldiers left, and still to this day has a church on it, right? Wow. So this is clearly a continual British settlement for one. And also those Romans that, they've been bigging up this Cowstock site quite a lot, but those soldiers were there from 40 to 80 AD. And then in 80, they upped and left. And the reason is because the people were so bloody Romanized that they didn't need soldiers there anymore. Which I think is, that's what the chief archaeologist said. The people they were just so Romanized by then. This is the same Cornish that withstood Wessex rule. For 500 years.
Wow.
Well, so bloody Romanized in 50, not even 2 generations, that they didn't need someone watching them. That's a load of rubbish.
Yeah, that's shit. Yeah.
Those Dumnonians would have tore them to pieces. Like I don't think this warlike people would have just been like, I can remember before the Romans were here, but doesn't matter. I'll just continue paying my taxes and whatever.
I think you've done a great job today of really stringing together some very interesting artifacts to do with the spirit of Cornwall.
Good. I hope so. I've done it justice, especially as someone who lives in Devon.
No, absolutely. No, but it's like, it's like you got these narratives, so they just basically rolled over and they were fine with us being here. But you've also got, Saxon stories of Saxons reclaiming this place hundreds of these people are not to be messed around with.
No, and the prayer mark, the prayer book,
the prayer
riots, like that is one hell of a piece of gumption to march on London. I mean, and that was just one of two big marches they did. Big armies marched on London, and unfortunately, they failed beforehand. But it's yeah, I don't think they rolled over for the Romans, certainly.
I couldn't imagine that.
It doesn't fit the pattern of later times. So yeah.
But you've also brought to the fore, you know, the very thing that which brings us to have these sort of conversations, Pete, which is that it's this kind of view on the Britons which prevails, you know, this mainstream view, which is just absolutely unconscionable, really.
Yeah. And you know, I've come through this so many times. You know, I make this point virtually every time we record. Whenever you find Cornish saints or Welsh saints in Brittany, they're fleeing the Saxons. But whenever you find Breton saints in Cornwall or Wales, they're itinerant teachers. Or do you know what I mean? And, you know, no, these people were all freely moving between these three places as they were all within their nation.
Absolutely.
You know, there was nothing to do with, they're not running away. They were just touring their lands, you know, and you know, this is how any people would move within any other country at the time. It's just we've got the ideas of modern borders are so ingrained in us. You know, but the channel is this insurmountable thing between us and France, whereas actually no, this is just one bit of, you know, and the modern Cornish border ends at the Tamar, you know, and there's no land link between Cornwall and Wales. It's like it doesn't matter, you know. It's the sea was the highway, you know.
Precisely.
Sea was the highway. The sea
Especially
was the
for
way
these
to
people,
travel.
especially for the Britons.
Especially they're an island nation, for Christ's sake. Island nation. They need to say it. You know, we've really moved away from it. But I think Ross mentioned as well, there was this for years and years, this idea that the British had any boats whatsoever at any period of their history, you know, was almost like a real no-no in archaeology until the weight of evidence became overwhelming. But you know, do you even need boats? It's a bloody island nation, for Christ's sake. You know? Nuts, absolutely nuts.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Right, we should leave it there before I get more wound up about boats. Right.
We start talking about the Sutton Hoo now. Sorry.
Oh God, what have I done here? Right.
Nice one, Pete. Brilliant.
Right. Cheers, Adam.
Cheers, Pete. It's always a pleasure. That's fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for watching, folks.